Have you ever noticed how one little what if can just get you on a spiral and you just keep going? What if, what if, what if, what if? And before you know it, you're living in this future full of fear and panic. And if you're new here, hi, I'm Margie. I'm an emotional mastery coach, and I help self aware people break out of overthinking, emotional overwhelm, and patterns that keep them stuck so that they can balance their emotions, create more clarity and peace in their lives. Panic, and while you're imagining what could happen, the worst case scenario, your poor body is suffering the consequences right now. Your heart's racing, your body is tight and clenched, you're exhausted, and you feel depleted because it's scary. All this thinking and overthinking of all the things that could happen because of something that's stressing you out. So here's an exercise I want to share with you that I love to help bring the mind down to a baseline. Because all our mind is trying to do by keeping us thinking and overthinking and looping in these stressful thoughts is bring safety. It's trying to keep you safe. So it's trying to think of solutions, but we rarely come to solutions just by spiraling in our heads. So this exercise is very practical. And so if you're someone who catches yourself either maybe distracting yourself to avoid thinking about something that's causing you stress, maybe you work harder or more so you don't have to think about it, or maybe you're just stuck in the spiral, or maybe you start judging yourself because you keep thinking about this thing and you're like, oh my gosh, but I know it's not going to happen. This is for you. And this exercise, actually, it's inspired by Tim Ferriss. He did a TED Talk where he goes more into it, fear setting exercise. So I'm going to link it if you want to go check it out. It goes into detail and it's a good exercise. So first thing we want to do is identify what is that's causing you stress. So I'll use an example of one of my clients. He was worried about losing his business. What stressful thought are you having? What's going on in your life that you are stressed about that's looping in your head? And the next thing, write it down. And the next thing you want to do is ask yourself, okay, what would happen if this came true? And so for my clients, it was, okay, well, if I lose my business or my licensing, then I won't have work. And it's like, okay, and so if that happens, then what? It's like, well, then I'll start depleting my savings. Okay, and what next? Well, then I'll run out of money and I won't be able to pay for my apartment. Okay, and what next? Well, I'll have to move out, and well, I probably also would not be legally able to stay in the country I'm living in because I'm a foreigner and my business is what's keeping me here. I have the paperwork because of my business. I'm like, okay, excellent. And so if that happens, what's next? Well, then I'd probably have to move in with my parents. And like, okay, and what next? Like, I'd end up living under a bridge because I can't stand living with my parents. So you see how this pattern keeps going further and further. Like, you keep getting to the root of what is happening in that thinking. Like, what is it that's really stressing you out? So for him, by the time he got to living under the bridge, he was like, okay, that's never going to happen. Like, I'm not even going to live with my parents. That's never going to happen. But now it quieted the mind because it knew, like, okay, what I thought was the worst case scenario, what was subconsciously playing out, he's like, no, it's not actually going to happen. So see how far you get to identify what is really at the root of this spiral. And so once we identify that, it's all in writing, it's out. Like, we know what's going on. Our brain has been able to communicate what it wants to communicate. The next question is, how would you handle being in each of those situations? So in his case, like the last two, he was like, that's not even going to happen. But maybe, okay, if I ran out of savings, maybe start spending less. That's what I would do. Or maybe I would look for another job at that point so that I don't lose my apartment. Or maybe I'd find a smaller apartment that's more affordable. Or maybe I would just move to another country where it's easier to get my visa. Or maybe, and so there was possibilities for each one. Like, he was coming up with all these solutions to avoid being in the situation he was afraid of getting into. So for each of those steps, he had a plan. And the next step is, what can you do now to prevent even getting into that first problem that you're stressed about? So for him was losing his licensing in that country for his business. Well, what happened? It turns out from doing this exercise that he realized that he doesn't really trust this accountant in being up to date with all the laws for foreigners in that country. And that's what was creating all this anxiety and worry underneath. I mean, rightly so. But now he could see clearly, once he had put everything on paper and really processed each of those things, identified what he could do. Now he felt empowered. He was coming from a place of possibilities rather than fear. He realized, like, well, I can just hire somebody who is knowledgeable in the laws and in the taxation for foreigners in this particular country, so that I make sure that everything's done right and there's no room for error or mistake. And look at that. And he still had like 6 months before this situation even possibly showed up. Like, there wasn't even anything for sure to make him believe that he would lose his license. But now he can do something about it. There's a way to prevent it. So for you, that might look like, okay, is there a conversation you need to have with someone? Do you need to start saving? Do you need to start cutting expenses? Do you need to ask for help? Do you need to look for another job? Do you need to hire somebody to provide the education or the guidance to sort the problem? And the thing is, maybe none of these options is exactly what you want to do. The point is, now we went from a place in our brain that was panicking and thinking, I'm screwed, to now realizing, oh, I actually do have options. Because at the end of the day, it's not about, did I make the right or the wrong choice? It's about having enough trust in yourself that if you were to be in that situation, you know how to get out of it. You have enough self-trust in yourself that you know you are capable to figure it out, to be resourceful. You have choices. And that's the beauty. When you have that level of self-trust in yourself, things don't feel so scary anymore. And that's why you can see, like, you see these people on YouTube or any platform doing super well. And they're like, if I lost it all, this is how I would build again. And they make it sound so easy and like, oh, it's a no-brainer. But because they have worked so hard at being resilient and trusting in themselves and building their capacity to be with challenging things, that when it happens, they know how to get out of it. So it's not about avoiding, it's about building that muscle of being comfortable with challenges. And because you're comfortable with that, now you can see possibilities and options. I'll break down again the 4 questions. One is, what am I afraid will happen? And then what? What happens next until you get to the core? And then ask, if that actually happened, what would I do? And what could I do now to prevent it? Or how can I prepare for this before it even happens? So instead of trying to survive today, what hasn't even happened tomorrow, go to my link in my bio.